All right, this week on Self-Starters, we have Matt Swider. Matt Swider is the founder of theshortcut.com, which is the #1 consumer tech publication on all of Substack. He's a tech journalist who's been writing about all things tech for almost 3 decades. At a young age, as young as 14, Matt started a video game news and reviews website called Gaming Target. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Called Gaming Target, and he spent 9 years at techradar.com, where he became the U.S. editor-in-chief. And when it comes to tech news, Matt, they call him the Messiah.
I like that. You did your research.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. So tell me, what are you up to now? Like, tell me about theshortcut.com.
Right. So it's on Substack, like you mentioned, and I started about 2.5 years ago. I was at TechRadar for a number of years, doing the news, doing the reviews about technology, and I got to 1 million Twitter followers, and I said, oh, okay, I can kind of do my own thing at this point. So I still have 1 million total social media followers, and it's been a blast because of the way I got there. And it was very organic, and they say the best ideas happen organically. And I was able to basically tell people how to get things that were out of stock during the pandemic. Namely, the PlayStation 5 was one of the biggest things that people wanted, and they couldn't get their hands on it.
And what are you doing right now? Theshortcut.com, like, what is it? What is it?
Yeah, so that is a newsletter. We're trying to make it daily, right? It's like weekly right now, but we're getting people on board to make it daily. And what it is it's the fastest way to get 10 stories that are tech-related or tech-adjacent, and you're able to kind of digest it in a much faster way. If you've ever been to a website before that it feels like it wastes your time, and they put the answer that you're looking for in the 6th paragraph, that's the opposite of what we do. We're trying to get bullet points out there, and we're trying to make sure you understand the story so that you can go on to the next story. We're not trying to waste your time, and that kind of goes to the name, The Shortcut.
I love that. There was an email I used to get about stocks that was very similar. It got rid of all the fluff, and it's just in a very palatable, easy digestible way every day for the normal human who isn't very tech savvy, or I'm sorry, stock savvy.
Right.
What was it?
There's a lot out there. Morning Brew is one of them.
Morning Brew.
Morning Brew is huge. So
that's what it was.
We could be the consumer tech publication.
It sounds like
similar to Morning Brew. Yes. So we're doing that. And it's just 10 easy stories to wrap your head around.
And I like that you use the term tech adjacent, because tech adjacent sounds very welcoming versus saying that it is, even just take the word adjacent out, just saying that it's a tech publication or it's a tech newsletter, saying that it's tech adjacent kind of screams like these are things that have something to do with the overall theme of tech.
Sure. It could be something that's going viral. So if you're into technology or use technology, which is pretty much everybody, it's
not even like 99.9. It's 100% of people.
Right. Yeah, there's some tribe somewhere that kind of is that 0.1%. But yes, that is something that we're going after, because doing 10 stories, we thought about paring it down to 4 and increasing the number of newsletters that we do. We said, okay, let's just pare down the amount of words we're putting in there, because we put so many words in there when we started. So 2.5 years, we're still adapting to some of the ideas that we have that pop up.
Have you ever tested doing a shorter one? Have you ever tested a 2-week span of doing half the amount of stories?
Yeah, we have. And my feeling is if you're not interested in those 4 stories, say we pared it down to 4, then you might not feel the need to have that newsletter anymore.
But did you see that?
Because we can see it in analytics.
Before we got on the mic, we were talking about A/B testing.
Oh, yeah.
So this sounds like the type of thing where it would make sense to A/B test, because maybe your share rate will go up if you have less articles that have more value per article because there's less articles.
Right. And we rely a lot on user feedback instead of having the tools on Substack to do A/B testing, where we send it out to half the audience this version and half the audience that version. I wish we had those tools. We don't. So what we have to do is almost market research it and go to people and say, which version do you like, and take that sample size. So it's a very old school way of doing it, but it's still effective. And my conclusion was, you may be interested in, if we did 10 stories at a shorter tempo, then you may be interested in 2 or 3 of those stories, and that may go, oh, that applies to me. And maybe you're not into video games and 3 of them are about video games. You can scroll over those. But if 3 of the 4 were about video games and you're not into video games, you're going to say this entire publication is not for me. So I feel like, having less depth going into it, but, read more button is a better idea. So that's what we found.
Nice. And also, consistency is probably the most important thing. Consistency is the name of the game. So if you are consistently having, if we were to go the route you're not going, if you had 4 or 5 where 80% of them one day is about gaming, 80% on the other day is about cameras, then someone who might chime in on that day, and when we're talking about some one, these could be some ones. This could be 5, this could be 3 dozen. It could completely turn them off.
Yeah, absolutely. So the consistency is really important, and being, a new site out there and having, 138,000 subscribers, you almost get stage fright if you send out an email and you see the amount of people go down. Every time I send an email, you see people unsubscribe because they're getting something and it may not appeal to them. So it makes you not want to send out an email. And so I think a lot of people, including myself, had stage fright at the outset of it. And I had to get over that. And then I saw the number of people responding rise when I started consistently sending newsletters. So it helped me get over that. But it's something that founders have to get over.
So do you still have do you?
Yeah.
How do you feel now, like in this part of your career, about unsubscribes?
It's probably a good thing in the end. It's something that you have to get past.
Thank you.
Because they're not your audience member.
Amen. Yeah, give me a high five on that. So
Absolutely.
Like as a real estate broker, 15 plus years, I send out newsletters. At points of my life, my career, they're more consistent.
Yes.
Excuse me. Big thing is getting over the unsubscribes.
Huge.
But you realize that the unsubscribes are great.
Yes.
Because you're not your audience. It's people who are getting your newsletter and shouldn't be getting your newsletter. So now if you're sending out, in your instance, 138,000, but for me sending out 8,000 emails, if I get 140 unsubscribes, great. Now I don't in my head think I'm sending out 8,000 emails. Get me down to 5,600. Shit, get me down to 4,400.
Right.
If those 4,400 are people who want to soak in the content.
Absolutely. And it's all about, one of the Wired co-founders, Kevin Kelly, had a quote about having 1,000 true followers, right? That's all you really need. And that is what I'm trying to appeal to. And, leaving Tech Radar, I'm going with 1 million followers, but I really need just 1,000 hardcore followers out there that are going to, we make money. We don't have any banner ads, so we make money through affiliate links. So we rely on people saying, okay, I trust Matt's recommendation. I'm going to buy this thing, and we get a fraction of that, not from the people. They don't pay anything extra, but the Walmarts and the Amazons and so forth. So that's how we make money in addition to paid subscriptions.
I love that, the way you just said that. So I was at a few months ago, I was at a lunch with a few founders, super successful guys, and conversation came up about like, who do you follow on Instagram? And most of the guys there, like the people who they said who are usually the ones that they're actually following, those people they're following, I don't think any of them had more than like 1,200 followers. Wow. And if anything, it was in like the hundreds.
Right.
Because it's just these uber successful, smart guys who aren't posting anything sexy. They're just posting stuff that's super valuable, and they are uber successful. And anything they're posting is something that should and actually does resonate with someone who is trending in that direction or is already in that direction.
Yeah, that's the value attached to what you post is way more important than production value or anything like that. So when BuzzFeed News did an article about me, they called it service journalism, and that's been a term that's been out there for a little while since then. But that was new to me, and I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. So I was posting when and where the PlayStation 5 would be in stock. And it came about very organically out of my own frustration with not getting a PlayStation 5 for a couple months after launch. And Sony just didn't have the chipsets to put out there, and they weren't manufacturing enough consoles. The demands, you have to go back and remember that, everybody burned through their Netflix queue, and they were, out of things to watch.
They watched Tiger King twice.
That is around that time frame, right? And so the obvious thing was like, all right, let me get a PlayStation 5. It just came out, and they couldn't get it for months. And so I tried to get it. I waited through a Sony queue at their website, and I got through the queue, and I put in my details on American Express. They don't accept American Express. So I errored out, and I tried to, put a new card in, and that didn't work. The error didn't disappear. So I got so far, and I couldn't get it. That was a Wednesday. Thursday, I get back in the queue. Usually these things aren't daily, but this is happening again. Thursday, I tweet out my frustration on Wednesday. Thursday, queue opens again. I tell people I don't get through the queue. But 500 people respond to me going, thanks for letting me know I got a PS5. And I was like, all right, you got it. Congrats. But I didn't get it. Friday, same thing happens. I don't get through the queue, but 500 people start following me again. And so every day was 5,000 new followers. I worked up to that point. My highest was 25,000 in a single day. In a day. And I tracked it on a spreadsheet and everything. And I would just I went from 21,000 Twitter followers to 1.07 million. So
in a month?
In about 8 months.
Oh my God.
But every day was 5,000 on average.
And at what point were you able to start monetizing?
So I worked for TechRadar, so that the affiliate links included their links. And then I realized once I got to 1 million and Black Friday was coming up, Black Friday was just going to make me a lot of money. And I said, okay, I need to do my own thing. And someone introduced me to the co-founder of Substack, a guy named Sagar, who has a podcast or show called Breaking Points. And he just looped me in, and all of a sudden this conversation started taking off. So, Did
he take interest in you right away?
I think Sagar and Jetty just messaged me on Twitter because that's where all the messages were happening. I had so many different celebrities following me and everything. That was kind of cool. And so by looping me in, they just convinced me, hey, you should be making a lot of money on your own right now. And that kind of changed my life. Definitely the affiliate money from, the Walmarts of the world. They paid zero. Everybody pays $0 on hot items, but it's anything that people put in their carts. They buy Listerine. All of a sudden, we get a percentage of that. So,
very cool. But do you only from your affiliate link from that cart?
Yes.
Do you only get paid from that one cart, or is it repeat visits?
Only that one cart, unless they click again. So the cookie gets burned if they check out or they click another creator's affiliate link.
Got it. What's the most money you ever made in a day from affiliate links?
It was like a weekend, and it was $1 million.
From affiliate links,
right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, do
you remember what the biggest? Do you have a spreadsheet of what the biggest spender was that you made off of?
I think it was people when they sign up for Walmart Plus. That was such a big thing, and they were rolling that out. So all the retailers started to lock the PlayStation 5 behind subscription services, and they were desperate to create their own Amazon Prime.
Oh, smart.
So they were paying more for that. So that really helped us kind of jumpstart the shortcut. I started with having no money to kick this off.
Yeah, and I hope you have a good CPA.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I definitely paid half of that in taxes. Pretty much. So, yeah. That was the killer thing because, the money got deposited into the next year because it was November Black Friday time, and so definitely paid the government their share.
Yeah, regardless, it's all still amazing to kickstart the rest of your life.
It is. It's a nice nest egg. I moved out of a studio apartment.
Yeah, but you go nest egg. Wrong word.
Okay.
Wrong word. Nest egg is for elderly,
right,
who
retirement.
Are selling the home that they've had for 40 years. They're not working. They're making peanuts on their what is it? The
retirement fund?
Yeah, retirement fund. They're making peanuts, and like this nest egg is their apartment they're selling that they have to live off of.
Right, they have to rely on Social Security. Right,
this is your money that you earned to kickstart the rest of your life.
And what I did with that right away was, I hired some people that I previously worked with, and they're great to work with. I still work with them every day, and it just to fund different people's careers. At a time when media is collapsing, and I see so many layoffs happening at different publications. There was a publication that survived for 8 months, and it was called The Messenger. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Sounds familiar. I think I saw the logo.
They spent millions of dollars on it, and I think reportedly made $5 million. And I'm like, I'm over here making more than a company that just spent $50 million on just resources and staff.
Well, companies that were grown in a certain way were growing based on a certain model that they had expected to grow on, versus you had a business that grew organically, and the way that you started it was by chance and by passion.
Yes.
And that is why it's totally different and that much better, and that's why you have the ability to have sustainable growth, because everything you're doing revolves around doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone asked me when I was leaving TechRadar, do you have to give back the followers? Because I got it, because one of the reasons was I was posting my Twitter handle in the articles. And the thing about the articles was that Google, whenever we wrote a article about PlayStation 5 being in stock, the article would do hundreds of thousands of page views, right? Each article. Right, a lot of people, maybe 200,000 sometimes. Google was indexing that 10 minutes after it was posting. These restocks were lasting 30 seconds. So we're getting hundreds of thousands of people hitting a page, and it's not very helpful. So what I started doing while I was frustrated was putting my Twitter handle and say, hey, if it's out of stock, follow me and turn on notifications. Those notifications were and still are my lifeblood of my Twitter handle, my X handle.
Of course. Well, that was part of your business model.
Right.
If you had to make a business plan, that would be at the top of the heartbeat. That would be the heartbeat of your business.
Yeah. So I was able to get subscribers through that method, but I was using all the affiliate codes and all the links from TechRadar. So they were making money. I was gaining followers, but at the same time, it was more of a leasing situation. No one pen that out or anything, but that's what it became. So, but I had to make that point to that person that said, you have to give them back. And I was like, well, no. Started the Twitter handle way back when, before I joined that organization, even while I was there for 9 years.
What is your Twitter handle?
It's at Matt Swider. So just my name.
Oh, so nobody had taken it yet?
No one had taken it yet, and I actually got the shortcut as well. I had to buy that off of somebody, but it was an easy $500.
For the shortcut?
Yeah.
The shortcut feels like something someone would hold on to.
Yeah, but I think it was someone who didn't love Elon Musk, so that worked in my favor.
Very much so.
Just when he bought it, and I was like, oh, let me get that off you. You're not using it very often, so that was an easy purchase for me. But yeah, I made the point of no one staying up until 3 a.m. Every 6 weeks, Amazon would randomly restock this rare item, the PS5. No one's staying up till 3 a.m. when they refresh all of their deals to check Amazon. So unless someone wants me to pay me for 24 hours of work, I'm going to take my Twitter handle with me. Thanks. So that was it.
Amen. Was there any point that you thought I have the capacity to know when these are coming out? Let me go buy a dozen PS5s.
Absolutely, that was pitched to me, and people begged me to do it.
Yeah. Right, but were they then going to pay 5x what the cost?
They were doing it, yeah.
Because that would be the business model,
right?
Maybe not 5x, but at least 2-3x.
Right, and I made the altruistic point of, hey, I will never sell you a PS5. What was happening was people were pretending to be me, right, and they were making up fake Twitter handles. They were actually hacking. This is one of the unknown stories. Accounts that had blue check marks from celebrities that didn't actually protect their account with two-factor authentication. That is one of the most important things. But back a couple years ago, that wasn't a thing. They were hacking deceased celebrities. They were hacking an NFL player that was on the field and making fun of him because they just hacked him while he was kicking off, and they
Who was this?
I forget. I have to look it up, but I took tons of screenshots. It's just it's going to make a great story one day. It just
it's a great story right now.
Right, absolutely. So the guy who played Gunther in Friends, he passed away. They took over his Twitter account. His widow contacted me and said, "Hey, through a mutual friend, I used to live in LA. This is happening. You know about this PS5 stuff. What's happening?" So I had to put them in touch with my contacts at Twitter at the time, and just like rescue that account. There were so many journalists who did not have two-factor authentication on, and they all got hacked. So these scammers, because they're all promising someone a PS5 for $550, that was like the amount, right? It was only $50 over.
Yeah, but
too good to be true.
Think about the amount of people who would.
Oh, millions.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars. It was probably about $10, $20 million, right? I have to look back at my notes, but I got one of the hackers invited me to the Discord group, and I got to watch them, and I didn't say anything, and I just looked at all the accounts they were hacking and just tried to circumvent that. So I didn't make a big deal out of it, but half my job at that time was playing a double agent.
You're like a guardian angel.
It was fun. It was fun. Like the Sony community just loved me for that time, and they still love me. Like I still get comments like, "Oh, you helped me get a PS5 or an Xbox." Xbox was out of stock as well. So yeah, the biggest accounts were the ones with the blue check marks, which is why that system really never worked. No one was protecting it.
You know, Matt, not all superheroes wear capes.
Yep, it was fun. It was people said I was crazy while I was doing it because it had no benefit to them. There was no monetary value. It was all going to a job already held, right? A company already was at. But I was like, no, there's an upside, and also making people happy and getting thousands of comments in an instant every time you post. Like I refuse to post as one of my strategies that anything that wasn't a real restock, and that's really what helped my account. It was, this is going to be beneficial for my audience only, versus there was other restock accounts, and there's a whole community that did it, but they were at smaller counts because they would tweet about Jake Randall or a guy named Jake Randall did really well. They would tweet about the Jake Paul fight that was going on. Your audience does not want to hear your bloviating about current events. So I stuck to only restocks, and I put a siren in there if it was happening. And there was a couple people who got back to me. The most crazy story was there was a guy in pest control, and he goes, "I know if I get an alert on my phone, I know it's a real restock because I know it's from you. I have notifications on because you never tweet out anything else," right? And I went to go cite that example, and I tried to find it, and I found it, but I was like, this message is a little bit different. This guy is in pest control as well. It was two guys in pest control, right? The odds of that are crazy, right? They had slightly different jobs, and I was just like, getting to 1 million followers, you come across that, right? But yeah, there were so many scams happening.
2 in a million,
right? It was cool.
There's a 2 in a million chance,
right? And I would just like, wait, this is not the guy. It wasn't until later when Twitter came out with searching your direct messages that I was able to find both of them.
It's crazy it took that long.
Yeah.
For that feature to be a thing.
It changed things for me because I could actually help people who DM me and they wanted specific things.
It's crazy to think because of how large of a company and how many employees and how the valuation of said company.
Yes.
For a feature like that to not exist.
So small.
That is some code that could be added by an intern.
Right. I think a lot of people hate on X right now, but the old Twitter was so, I don't know if corrupt is the right word.
Meat and potatoes?
Yeah. They just didn't get to the things. Like we tried warning them. Myself, the guy Jake Randall I mentioned, another guy named Cameron, we all tried to warn them, hey, there are all these scams going on. Can you take care of this? They were impersonating all of us. They were impersonating, just media figures. There were politicians that they pretended to be. They were hacking into all these accounts. So it was just fascinating. I did get a death threat that was kind of a big one. I had to call the NYPD 3 o'clock in the morning.
Dude, you made it.
I did. I haven't gotten killed yet. So they called me and they asked me, "Is this Matt Swider?" And I said, "Who is this?" And they said, "Is this the PS5 restock guy, Matt Swider?" It's 3 a.m. I'm in my New York City apartment. And I just pause, and the voice goes, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your entire family." And I just freaked out a little bit. I didn't say anything. I just waited I tried to get like the recording device on. They called back. I picked up again. I was recording that time. And they said they wanted me to unban their account because it was affecting their scamming, right? So I had to call the NYPD, death threat, and so forth, and they couldn't really do anything about it, even though, you would think you can trace this stuff.
Wait, but they unbanned their account, so they told you who their account was?
I think so, yeah. That was something where they were making millions of dollars off of scamming people, but by banning their account, they weren't able to go through my replies of all the people because they were individually DMing, direct messaging all these people.
And it's interesting that they threatened to kill you versus offering you money.
Oh, yeah. And they've done that. They did that as well. And they looped me into a group chat once, and it was just fascinating. And they, said, "Fuck Matt Swider" was the title of it. And then I made friends with them. I'm like, "Yo, you guys are hustling," because I wanted more information about these guys. "You guys are hustling. You guys are doing a great job. Like if people fall for the scams, that's on them." All of a sudden, Matt Swider is our God was the name of the group chat, right? So I started getting information from these people to cut off their access. So that's how I got invited to their Discord group. Eventually, Discord shut it down, but not before I made close enough contacts with like the head of the hacking unit, and I was able to get into their Telegram. They moved on to Telegram.
You're like a tech hostage negotiator.
You are like friends with them.
Yeah, you are like the IT Chris Voss.
Right. It's needed these days because otherwise, like I try to contact different companies involved in circumventing hacking. And they all wanted information. This is another scam. They all wanted information to get a bounty, right? So they wanted to take my work and go, "Oh, okay, I'm going to hold this against, the Twitter executives and make money from it." And I was just like, "Oh, this is not a good, like no one's good in this situation." So I was just like, "Okay, I'm going to skip that and just keep doing my double agent work." But it was half my job, but people don't know about that part.
You're doing God's work, Matt Swider.
It was fun. It was, and like now I can hire people off of that. Like there's no better story than that.
No. So let's bring it back like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, when did you get into tech?
Yeah. So when I was 14, I had a friend make a wrestling website on a free site that's like GeoCity. It was called Angel Fire. Back in the day, they had you can set up a free website. This is 1999. And he set up a wrestling website, and I was like, I could do that. I'm going to write about N64 games, my favorite N64 games. I started to do that.
What was the first game you wrote about?
Probably like GoldenEye or something like that. Yeah.
Let's go.
Oh, great game. And, it's just like new. I had a friend say, "Oh, Nintendo's a copycat. They're coming out with a Resident Evil game, but that's made by a third-party company." So I try to demystify that on the internet.
Did 64 come out with the Resident Evil?
Yeah.
Resident Evil is probably the original, probably one of the best video
PlayStation games.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, and it's still going today.
I remember sitting there watching my brother play it and beat it.
Yes.
And I think he beat it at like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And it was like all night, like, and not for nothing as a kid. It's scary as hell.
Oh yeah, especially when it's dark out and no one's awake.
Resident Evil was scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great memories. But you wrote about 64 first.
Yeah.
Give me your top, doesn't have to be in order, your top 5 64 games of all time.
That's a tough one. All right.
And this is yours.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, this is your top favorite 64 games of all time.
There's such a tough decision between the top 3, but let's go with GoldenEye 007. Just like so many people had sleepovers our generation playing that game all night long.
Yep.
It's such great memories. Mario Kart 64.
Yep.
Such a great game, that version. And I would say Super Mario World is up there. Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is like a classic. Just waited for that for so long, and it finally came out. I don't know if I have a fifth that I can think of, but there are so many games out there that deserve to be resurrected, and they try that with GoldenEye to come out with a new version, but it didn't quite capture what should be an updated version just because of licensing issues. But yeah, N64 was what got me into video games, right? And I guess I was a little more shy around like as a student, but that enabled me to connect with people because other people had gotten the N64, and I usually was, had a Super Nintendo way later than it came out. So,
but when you were making your website,
yes,
like, how did the journalistic approach come in?
Right.
Like, when did you get into writing?
So starting that website enabled me to basically do what early publications did on the internet. There was a website called GameSpot, and they had a bunch of news. So I was basically reblogging that stuff way before blogging was even a thing in 1999. And then I started saying, hey, I play these games. Why don't I review them? And then all these companies, I didn't know this was a thing, started sending me, I contacted them, just cold pitch, and they started sending me games. I asked for a game from one company on a Saturday. I sent the email, and the woman said, oh, wow, you're really working on a Saturday? And I'm like, I'm a 14-year-old kid in my parents' front room with a gateway computer, right? Like, I didn't say that, but I was like, yes, I'm, burning the midnight oil. So I just, it just... You were
an influence at 14. You were an influencer.
Yeah. So it was fascinating to be blogging before blogging was a thing, and it grew from there. And I started to get people from a IRC chat room that were interested.
IRC?
Yeah, IRC was like an early server-based chat room. It's like, I don't know, the ancestor of Slack. Okay. Right. So it was out there. It was free to create a chat room, and there was a couple minor websites.
Was that similar to like AOL chat groups?
A little bit, a little more free form too. It's just like archaic stuff that I don't know if it exists anymore, but it was in an era where AOL Instant Messenger was a big thing, but people wanted a chat room to connect. So it was probably a little bit after the AOL chat rooms that took off, early 2000s. And so I, got some people who wanted to write for me. They just wanted to write about video games, and then eventually free video games when we started, getting into that. And then, got advertisers and so forth on the website. And I hired enough people where I was able to move me out to California. Philadelphia area wasn't the video game capital of the world at that time.
Was California?
California was, but I moved to Los Angeles because two friends moved to Los Angeles. So that was an opportunity. It was more of a San Francisco vibe at that time.
That's what I expected.
Yeah, but San Francisco was just, I didn't know anybody there, and it was very pricey. So Los Angeles kind of fit the mold at the time, and I was able to kind of make some inroads. Hired one guy named Alex Roth. He was working for me, just writing about video games, and he went to some events, got hired at a website called, after training him for 2 years, got hired at a website called Games Radar. And I was like, so happy for him, but also like I'm losing my right-hand man. But I started freelancing myself for G4 TV, just different publications out there. And when G4 TV got canceled by Comcast, I was like, my main go-to revenue source in addition to Gaming Target was gone. So Alex said, hey, I just switched over to Tech Radar. We just started a U.S. brand. Why don't you come write for us? So I started freelancing for them.
Just right away. You didn't have to think about it. You're just like, let's go.
Yeah, and I was getting into more technology even when I was doing the G4 articles. Google Glass was a thing that was announced. So instead of writing about video games, this is what I would suggest to anybody. If your interest is changing but you have a particular job, try to segue yourself. So I was writing about Google Glass and how it could impact video games, that sort of technology.
Make the connection.
Yes. And that bolstered my resume when I went to other places to not just write about video games, but write about technology, because I was starting to get into the tech scene a lot. So I was freelancing for Tech Radar for a year and a half. And one of the big bets that I made on myself was I spent $1,500 on Google Glass, right? I think the article paid me $500. So I got $500 for the review. So I lost $1,000, but I gained a full-time job when they had openings.
You also got the Google Glass.
I still have it. And it helped me secure that job. And it was such a unique article. There was a guy named Tim Stevens who was at Engadget and at the time, and he did that. And I was like, oh, that's great. He did a review, but it's invite only. Only a couple people can get them. So I'm like, that's job security right there, right? Like, you're making a name for yourself and you're gaining a social media following. So I said, I'm going to make that same investment into, this product and into myself.
That's smart. But like, what in your life kind of like put that in your mind that that's what you need to do? Was it part of the way you were parented? Like, what was the family dynamic? What made you have the wherewithal to do that?
I would say the family dynamic certainly helps. My mom and dad are
critical thinking is not something that most people have.
Right.
Most people don't have the ability to do actual impressive critical thinking. And that's why interviews for certain jobs are as hefty as they are, because they really want to dive into somebody and they want to think if they would think the way that you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's the rebel in me a little bit.
There you go.
In the tech world, that's either a rare thing for the majority of people, but then you get the entrepreneurs out there willing to take those risks and those chances. I will say I was. My mom is the president of a community theater company, and I was in plays a lot as a kid. My sister started that, and that helped me become more outgoing. And what I see in the tech world is a lot of people who are introverted, which is fine, but when it comes to moving up through a company, as I did through Tech Radar, I took more risks and I was more willing to get in front of the camera. That helped a lot, and willing to get in front of my bosses. So, and I took some risks. There were a lot of people around me who said, no, you shouldn't do that. My peers at my level. But I told my boss once, former boss, Gareth, great guy. I said, he moved up into a top role, and I said, you're not doing a good job at this. And he very welcomingly said, I want your feedback. Right? Because no one else would tell him.
Yeah, everybody's a fucking cheerleader.
And everybody else talks, about, it's like, oh, this is not going well, or that's not going well, or I don't like when this happens or that happens, right? But instead of doing that, I presented him the information. And immediately, almost immediately, I got to the managing editor role, right? So I surpassed the people that were kind of on my same plane and able to make that risk.
You know what I'm hearing? You were the alpha in a room of a lot of betas.
Yes, that's a thing in the tech world, and I think more people need to take those risks because otherwise you're gonna be in that role forever and not move up. And I've seen that time and time again. And I try to encourage people to take it. There was so many people who are like, you can't say those things, and I was like, well, I just did.
Yeah, say I can.
Yeah,
tell me I can.
Exactly.
Are you getting death threats? Nope.
Right? That's like the ultimate achievement there. Yeah. So, that helped me move up. And then I'll tell you this. I had 8,000 Twitter followers. So how did I get to 21,000 Twitter followers? Well,
let's see. Where are you at work at this point?
So I became the managing editor at that point, and that was it was one step away from the U.S. editor-in-chief, the final role I had. And so I started having more decision-making power and started to, stand my ground on certain things and reshape the format of Tech Radar reviews. And our U.S. audience was 3 times as large as our U.K. audience, but we were the number 1 U.K. tech website out there. So there was some power dynamics there. So I tried to, make our reviews shorter because that's the one thing I got in the feedback. And this is like more than 10 years ago at this point.
You were ahead of the game with that
one. Right, exactly. And everybody wants shorter things nowadays. So I invented something called the 2-minute review, which was we were reviewing a product and we had the mini verdict and then the intro. I think the intro is very important. And then you had everything broken down spec by spec of like design, display, camera. And then you had the almost 2 verdicts at the bottom, right? Or the last page because it was multi-page, right? And it was like, if I'm talking about the speakers on this phone that are amazing, I'm going to be talking about in the mini verdict, the intro, the key specs, which is one of the breakout sections, and then the verdict. I am plagiarizing my own work, right? So I was like, I just want my best lines to live at the top. So I created the 2-minute review at the very top. And it was more for people who wanted a review that lasted no longer than, a couple seconds, and they could make a confirmation purchase. I think those are the most purchases out there. They want to say, I want a new Kindle. Should I get it? And they want something to back them up.
It's quick.
Yes, but it also has the depth. So it's not like a magazine review that just doesn't really give you that much information. So if you want more information, it's broken out at the bottom. So I kind of adapted that. I couldn't use the 2-minute review name anymore at the shortcut, but I've adapted to that. Use a lot of emojis on the shortcut.
And not for nothing, like you doing all this is completely synonymous with the platform of which you grew on.
Right.
100, how many characters?
It was 140, then it doubled, so 280.
Yeah, but when you first caught fire, it was 140, right?
Yeah.
So like 2-minute review is literally your version of 140 characters.
Absolutely. And people want that. And if they want to read on, they can. But at least you're giving them an option to exit, but exit with your complete thoughts. So that really helped. I think they still use it. And I look every once in a while, and I'm just like, oh, okay. That had some lasting impact on that publication. And it is amazing. I was at 8,000 Twitter followers. Little segue, I got caught I went to, there was a conference called Mobile World Congress.
What, say it again?
Mobile World Congress.
Oh, Mobile World Congress.
Yeah, it's like CES, if you're familiar with that one, but it's in Barcelona, right?
Got it. So, I'd rather go to Barcelona than Vegas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a fun time. I go there every year. I still do.
Nice.
But it got canceled because they were afraid of people coming in from Asia because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right? And it was that's February, but not a big thing. So I still go to one of my trips, which is I'm going to hire a guy named Adam Vijestica in the UK, right? We're talking a lot of candidates, but he was the clear winner. So I go to the UK still, and instead of going to Barcelona, I'm like, you know what? I already made plans to go to Egypt, to all these places. I usually do a trip on the back of an international conference because you're out there. I went to Morocco one year. I go to Egypt, and I still go to that because I have all the plans made, and I get caught there for a week. And I was in a military hospital.
I like to use the word caught.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't leave. I had to lobby Congress to get out of there.
Are you lobbying on Twitter?
Yeah. So I went from 8,000 Twitter followers to 21,000 Twitter followers.
While you were being held captive?
Yeah. You can say that. And so I luckily loved that country. It was amazing. The last 2 hours were the ones that were chaotic. And those 2 hours turned into another week.
And I was like, my following tripled while I was in captivity.
Right? So the craziest thing I did, talking about risk and just serendipity, I had I had 2 friends with me, and one of them wanted a bunch of dresses, right, from a shop, our last stop, right before allegedly going to the airport, right? And she was like, can you play bad cop? I'll play good cop, sure. So she's like, can I have these 3 dresses? And the guy's like, $25. And I was like, make it 20 and throw in this, it was a gaudy I Love Egypt shirt, right? Bright blue, and just an I Love New York shirt with the heart and everything. And I bought that shirt, got it thrown in for free. So I wore that while I was in the hospital and was taking photos. And all of a sudden, I just blew up. I was on 2 talk shows via the phone I didn't even know I was on 2 talk shows because I thought it was 1 talk show because they called me and then they called me again. I was like, oh, okay, they're just reconfirming. And then I realized when they called me at 2 different hours, I was on 2 different late night talk shows in Egypt. It was crazy.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So eventually I got out of there, but I had this following bump. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I started to really focus on that. And
you saw it. You're like, this Twitter thing, this is real. While I love my job and I love, being a tech journalist, I need to focus on the short form.
It's job security, right? And I think a lot of people don't know that, right? And they don't treat their Twitter as, or their social media.
But not for nothing, it was also your IP.
Yes.
Versus everything else you were doing was you were
Owned by
working
somebody
for a
else.
company.
Yes.
But this is something that you owned, and if they let you go, this is your IP.
Right. And that guy I mentioned, Tim Stevens, he was no longer at Engadget, but instantly was hired at CNET at the time. And he was able to, parlay some of this. He had a big following. So who wouldn't want to hire somebody who does great work and has a great following? So I saw that and I said, I probably need to do that too. And I never had planned to leave TechRadar, but it was a great job. But it was something calling to me and said, hey, media environment, it's very tough out there. I should have some insurance.
Was there any point after you left TechRadar that you were like, all right, maybe this was not the right path. Maybe I should pack it up and go find something more solid?
Sure. And I've gone down on the X following because when 3 particular days when Elon took it over or pledged to take X over, some of my following that leans one political way started to not unfollow me, but delete their accounts, right? So fleeing X was a big thing. And then when he actually bought it, another dip. And then when he unbanned Trump, that was another dip. So I, try to keep my stuff to restock purchases and discounts and tech news and reviews, right? And I try not to venture out there too much into, other worlds. But that's something where I know that it can go down at any time. So yeah, there have been times where I'm like, was this a good idea? I hired a bunch of people, even more people, within the first year of starting the Shortcut. Some of them worked out and some of them did not. But I made all the mistakes that you need to make, and that is part of the growing process.
100%. Now, being at a publication, doing what you do at the top, how do you quantify whether someone as an employee is worth their salary?
Yeah, it depends on their role. If they're in a money-making role, say affiliate or sales, they need to be making back their money instantly versus.
But do you have a multiple? Like, hey, if you're making $100,000, you need to be bringing in $140.
Yeah, there's something like that. But I also have to be cognizant that we're in a growing publication. So when we're making deals with companies out there like NVIDIA or Mophie or whatever company that wants to have their brand out there on the Shortcut, I need to realize that that's not going to happen right away on all fronts. So with a journalist, technically I can lose a little bit of money and have some slack there because they're creating content that's going to bolster the website. I think we began at 0 out of 100 in domain authority, and now we're at 44 out of 100, right? Within 2.5 years, it's a big growth.
I don't get what you're talking about, but that sounds like a nice increase.
It's a nice increase. That's all you need to know. But, I came from a publication that's in like the 80s, 90s, right? So, I need to.
But they didn't listen.
Yeah,
the man at the top of the mountain didn't fall there.
Right, exactly. And so I need to have content creators that aren't instantly making money back. But if you're in sales and affiliate, then there has to be multiples there. So,
are you ever looking to bring in content creators who aren't tech focused, but something where they're maybe fashion focused, where the same way you were connecting the dots with the Google Glass and what you were doing with gaming, maybe connecting the dots with fashion and whatever tech you're working on?
So I think the name, The Shortcut, lends itself to a lot of different verticals, which is really nice. That's something we struggled with at TechRadar, was we saw another site also owned by Future, which is the parent company of TechRadar, Tom's Guide, do really well with mattresses, but it really didn't fit our mold at TechRadar because how's that tech, right? But the affiliate commissions on mattresses were huge.
Was it like an 8 Sleep product?
Yeah, not just 8 Sleep, just like mattresses in general, especially on like Labor Day, like that type of sale, right? And it was huge on Tom's Guide, but we struggled with the name TechRadar. Can we do that? The Shortcut can go anywhere because it's just all the information you need in a short pattern. I think what I want to do with it is almost the opposite of what publications are doing these days, which is I want to link out to a lot of different sources because we're not the only source. So Google has kind of fallen a little bit in terms of being really very helpful, but there's no source out there that kind of links all the other publications that you want to hear from, all the YouTube videos. You have to rely on a search algorithm. And it's like, well, why don't we just link to everybody in addition to our own content? So that's kind of the Rotten Tomatoes idea that we're going for.
I love it. And, to piggyback on what you just said, slowly but surely in the last 18 months or so, I'm using Google less.
Yeah.
I'm using ChatGPT if I want information on something.
Yeah.
Because if I want to know what's the best way to do this, or how should I say this, or if just looking for research for something, ChatGPT, I could plug that in and then have a conversation about it. And not only am I getting more information, but I'm actually learning how to now implement it in my life.
Absolutely. And how I like to think about that is it gets you to the next step. It's a literal shortcut to that next step, so you can do something else. It frees you up, and I think that's really helpful. We at the Shortcut can't use AI for specific reasons, and it's something that
IP.
It's IP related. It's the fact that we're dealing with breaking news. So when you're looking up something about history, that's great. There's a lot of different sources out there. There's encyclopedia books just filled with information that it's aggregating, right? With a breaking news story about Apple or Google or Samsung, that story is probably written by 2 or 3 publications so far. And if we're writing about it as well, or if we have a press release that's under embargo, there's nothing out there about it. So we can't really use that. So, the only solution for that for AI companies is to mix it up with a bunch of different, sources. But if there's already a bunch of different sources, we're kind of late to the game.
Yeah, and when you and I met, I had asked you about using ChatGPT and how much easier it would make your life. But now that we've had this conversation and, I hear so much about the value of the words of which you put on the paper.
Right.
It makes sense, and everything needs to be authentic.
Absolutely.
And even if OpenAI or whichever your AI of choice is able to learn your vibe.
Yeah.
Having a fresh mindset and saying fresh words every single time holds even more value.
Absolutely. I'm reviewing some devices right now, some of the Samsung devices, and they're great, but there's starting to be reviews online. But I can't really look at those reviews because I want my own fresh perspective from it. So
even if you would reference one of the reviews, would you do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Here's how I feel, but X, Y, and Z felt this way.
I love doing that, but I like doing that after I touch the product and kind of form my own opinion. Because otherwise you're just piggybacking off of that person's opinion. It could sway you.
I was just going to say, or whether it's intentional or not,
exactly.
It could sway you.
Yeah. So, and there are different top creators that get things wrong. So it's nice to look at those and then go back into your piece and reference that. So whether they get it right or wrong, it's nice to link back to that. So I want to do that more.
And who's your favorite brand that pays you?
That's a great question. That pays us. Really, our money comes from the affiliate stuff. So Walmart is such a big referrer to us. They have a Walmart Creator Program right now, and they're trying to get everybody on board. But
so you love the Walmart Creator Program.
It is very good. There's also one from Samsung through a company called Howl that we're using. So it's just different companies are creating their own platforms for you to sign up for, and then you refer your friends or your massive following, and then you get some money from it. And I have enough where I'm able to, be comfortable and then have a team that's also comfortable. So, nice. And I want to expand. We're looking to hire one more person. And it's just I'm able to do that because of that support from the followers who are clicking through my links and buying stuff.
So what do the next 6 months look like for you?
Definitely the biggest thing is the new Apple iPhone. And that's going to happen in September, the iPhone 16 series. And then we'll go into Black Friday. So Black Friday begins in October these days, and that is going to be where we make the majority of the money to fund the next year. Just people trusting our recommendations, because there's always, if you're being paid by advertisers on your site or just companies that are, trying to make, a lot of influencers want to impress the Dysons of the world or whatever. There's no negativity in a lot of these reviews. And that's something I have a problem with. So we're trying to review these products in time for Black Friday in a more authentic way. So that's what we're doing between now and the end of the year. A lot of new phones will come out. I'm currently reviewing the new Samsung foldable phone, which is, check that out.
What do you think so far?
I'm a big fan of the foldables, and once Apple does it, I think a lot of people will be convinced as well. So you can fold it in half, so it's a mini tablet, but you also...
look at that. It's a full... It's legit a square.
Yes. And they made this year's bigger. This one comes out next Friday. So...
Oh, wow.
It's great.
If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can't see this, but on YouTube, you could see this. How this is awesome because probably I don't see a Zoom app. Is there a Zoom? But like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Any form of like video conferencing app as well. I mean, I don't know why my mind first goes to that. But how about just streaming?
Yeah, huge.
Any form of streaming or
someone says, "Hey, can you edit that spreadsheet?" But you're traveling.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't have my tablet
computer,
or laptop. Yeah. Right? And now you have that ability to have multiple apps open at once. So yeah, you can. It was so fun the first year that came out. I was still at Tech Radar, and I would show people in the office, and they would have it open like a tablet. And I was like, go ahead, close it. And they would start to crease. And what are you doing? And they would freak out. And I'd be like, just kidding. It's supposed to do that. Yeah. So I had fun being in an office. Yeah. That's one thing I miss, is like that office environment and everything. But
that sounds like a nerd joke.
It is.
I'm gonna break your screen.
You're right,
but it's so great though.
Right? No, it was great. People got a kick out of it because they're really impressed with the technology. The fact that you can fold a phone in half,
and not for nothing, like the one that you're talking about, that was like V1.
Yeah,
and now it's like, don't buy that one. Give it a couple years.
Absolutely. I have one more phone for you. The opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh,
the iPhone 1. It's not charged, but it still works. It still works. I take that every year to the Apple store, and I show it to Tim Cook and a guy named Jaws, the head of marketing, and I take a photo with Greg Jaws every year.
Hello,
and he loves it.
It's 2006. How are you?
Because like they made
2006?
2007.
Yeah.
And they made this. I really think the Apple Vision Pro, I don't know if you've used that yet.
Not yet, no.
I'll stop by with it.
Yeah, they, every Apple store is like, sign up and do the test, but like
I'll bring it to you, right? So it's fun. There are some demos there, but I call that the iPhone of the headset generation, right? It's not quite there yet. It's going to be.
I had this conversation with a buddy yesterday.
Yes, okay.
And we were talking about it, how like give it like it's the technology is there.
Yeah.
5 years from now, it'll be much more common practice to wear it when it's actually a thing.
Yes.
When it looks more like cool glasses.
Right.
It might end up like getting to the size of like a pair of Oakleys.
Right.
Because to think that it's going to be like by the size of like some like wireframes.
Yeah.
That seems too hard. I don't know.
It'll happen one day, but 10 years.
Yeah, but like to get to like the size of a pair of Oakleys.
Right.
Is much more palatable than what they are now.
Right, and it's very expensive, but I think it's almost on purpose to keep it out of people's hands.
Very expensive.
Until
I remember probably 98, 99 buying a portable DVD player for like $700.
Right, cutting edge technology
with like
at that
a 5-inch screen.
Yeah. Do you remember how much this iPhone 1 cost?
$799.
So it was $500. No, it was $600. I think.
$600.
Right, it was $599. I believe.
Yeah.
They dropped the price immediately. But do you know what the megapixel is on the front-facing camera for taking selfies?
I'm gonna guess it's like three megapixels.
There is no front-facing camera.
There is no front-facing camera.
Sorry, trick question. Right? That's another nerdy joke. But yeah, their selfies did not exist yet. So to think this thing was only on one carrier, cost a lot more money than the $199 it eventually became, had no front-facing camera, no app store, right? That didn't come until year 2. So I'm willing to give the Apple Vision Pro or the Apple Vision line. I think the Apple Vision Air is next year. I'm willing to give that a chance because it's way too expensive. It's not for everybody, but eventually it will in 10 years become a pair of Ray-Bans.
Like less by 2029.
Oh yeah.
By 2029 they'll be like $299 and everyone will have them.
Right.
And like that'll be like the conversation for like 2 years in schools, like should kids be able to wear them and
absolutely.
yada yada yada.
And people think that they're like, all right, what can it actually be used for? A headset or glasses when it finally comes into that form factor. And it's like, well, if you ever are walking in Las Vegas and the casinos are just massive there and people are like, oh, it's in ballroom F. And you're like, where is ballroom F? So that, I go to CES every year. It's very confusing. What if you had a green line to follow? Kind of like that, banking commercial where you just follow the green line. What if you had that in your periphery of where to walk, or your seats at a stadium, or the grocery aisle, right? If you're going to a department store and you want a specific item, but you just don't know where it is. I think a lot of that will be commonplace in 10 years.
And I would love that. And then to add on to that, let's say if you're on a diet, being able to look at said product and knowing the nutritional facts, knowing how much protein or how much carbs, saturated fat, calories are in this product.
And on top of that, it's personalized to you. So all that information is popping out only about the information that you care about.
Fucking love it. And what are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I read a lot of tech blogs. That is my thing, right? So every day I wake up and I'm like, how does the current mainstream news intersect with the technology world? So I read thousands of blogs probably per day. Like I took a lift here and that is what I was doing. It's like, all right, what do people actually care about? Because
do you still enjoy it though?
I do. It is a lot of work, and one of the things that's hard with being a founder is you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, more so than having a steady paycheck and having almost this cookie cutter style of, oh, this is what I need to do. So there's an open-endedness to it that is a little bit very frightening, but also it's a relief to be able to do my own thing. So, but yeah, I'm looking to hire one more person. So that is like what's on my radar. So I'm trying to read up on people's resumes and different things.
Resumes, or are you trying to read up on
the different portfolios?
Are you looking at any blogs to see if you could poach people?
Yeah, I've already done that. I want to get younger people in too.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best way to go is to poach.
Oh, it is, because that they have experience rather than trying to train. There's something called like a reviewer's voice, and it's coining that, but it's more of a, like, I tried to get a family member to write something one time, and it didn't turn out. It sounded like marketing copy. And it's like, no, there needs to be critique there of like, ground this in what I want to hear. So I realized not everybody can do this job off the bat, right? And it takes years of experience to really nail it. So I need to find people who are either able to do that or able to do that pretty quickly. So it's not something where you're like, oh, I could do that and write this, perfect review. It's going to take some time. And I also like coaching people and training them. So it's just part of my job.
God's work.
Yeah, love it.
Is there any book that you would recommend to anybody?
There are a couple blogging books that I read.
Anybody, I mean everybody. So is there one book that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, there's a book that I read that I really liked, and it's called The Blogger's Bootcamp. I read that a long time ago, and I got sent a free copy because I commented on a TechCrunch article. And it was, and I won the copy, so I, tweeted about it to the guy, and he was at Gizmodo for a while. But yeah, the Bloggers Bootcamp was influential, and it mentioned the thing that like stuck out at me. I lent it to a friend, so I don't have it anymore, and I kind of want it again. But the thing that stuck out at me was it said, don't be just a consumer of reading blogs, but you have to actually put out the information. So you have to be a producer. And so much of our life is taking in media, whether we're watching a movie, watching TV, watching a Netflix show, reading podcast. But are you the creator of any of those? And so you have to put yourself out there. And that kind of like inspired me to be like, okay, I need to stop watching people's things and going, ooh, I should do that. I actually need to act on it and do it. So it's the consumer versus the producer.
Let's go. And that goes right back to your alpha mentality in a sector of betas.
Absolutely. And it's something that propelled me from learning how to act in plays at a young age to, making myself the front of a social media campaign to get myself out of Egypt, to rising through Tech Radar, to starting the Shortcut and gaining millions of Twitter followers. So, yeah.
Amen. And before I let you go, give me one word of advice for anyone trying to make it.
Start your own thing if you're young, especially, or not even age-wise, just if you're a novice in something. There are so many people who want to work for a big publication or be part of a big podcast or YouTube channel, and it's just like, I want to be jealous of you producing an article. And one of the people I want to hire that I'm looking at right now, he produced his own version of a laptop review. And I was like, I wish I contacted him before and just had him write it for us. So I really want to hire that person because he's done it. And maybe that's not the biggest publication in the world because it's its own Substack. But I'm like, wish I had that on my Substack. I wish I had that on the Shortcut because, he has his portfolio and it's active. And by starting Gaming Target way back in the day in 1999, I was making people jealous of my work. So they said, I want you to freelance for this much bigger publication while you do your own thing. And I was able to make a name for myself in that video game industry and then eventually the technology industry by, having a portfolio out there. If I started as an intern at a bigger publication like, a Newsweek at the time or something like that, which I tried to apply for, no one, I didn't get the job. 2, I would have started as a peon getting someone's coffee or making photocopies, right? So I wouldn't have that active portfolio running at the same time. It's great to have those jobs, but if you want to write about something or make videos about something, just get out there and do it and have a portfolio out there.
I love that. And common theme for you is things happening organically while doing what makes you happy.
Yeah. Love it.
Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me here. This is fun.
Matt Swider, the tech. How would you explain it?
I would say the tech explainer.
I swear to God, I was going to say the tech explainer.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say it more eloquently.
Oh, I love it. No, that is it.
Matt Swider, the tech review messiah. Great show.
Thank you.